Elliot, explain this. How does this happen?
Well, it's quite extraordinary, Jacob, and it relates back to those marginal tax rates, actually. So if you're on over £125,000 now, which is now, of course, the top rate of tax, the 45p rate of tax, you can be eligible for some levels of universal credit if you have children, for example, if you're single, if you're living in an area of very, very, very high rent and you're not an owner-occupier, and also if you have very high childcare costs. But this is really, really a problem, because if you're on that sort of income, frankly, you should not be receiving the support of the state.
Well, doesn't it tie in with the previous conversation that if you're being taxed at a marginal rate that's actually infinite, one penny leads to £6,000 of costs, the state has to make this up to you in another way. And so you get this merry-go-round of money with an administrative cost in between. It's
this huge fiscal churn that we spoke about just before I came on, and it's a real problem. We need to look at why on earth the state is having to support people on such high incomes, and it's because of these marginal tax rates. If you're on £50,000 now, over that you're paying 40% of tax. That means senior nurses, that means senior teachers, that means senior police officers are paying these very high levels of tax. And really the answer is to cut those benefits to people on higher incomes, but also to significantly increase those personal allowances that unfortunately have been frozen.
But didn't the coalition government, when it came in 2010 and we had the period of austerity, put a cap on the total amount of benefits that you could receive? Does that not apply?
The benefit cap only applies, I believe, if you're actually out of work. So if you're in work, that cap doesn't apply.
So therefore you can get these benefits right up the income scale.
Precisely.
Have you done any work on how much could be saved if people paying very high, earning high amounts didn't get benefits if you cut the taxes and you cut the benefits?
We haven't, but I think it's certainly something that needs to be looked into. I mean, policy and practice estimate that there could be around 1,500 households earning above that £125,000 limit that are receiving universal credit or are eligible. And ultimately, the state needs to ultimately step back from some of these areas. One of the reasons why they're paying such high rents may be because planning policy is so restrictive. One of the reasons why they're paying such high childcare costs may be because childcare regulations are too restrictive. And also, as we spoke, the marginal tax rates.
But one of the reasons we are at our highest tax level for 70 years is the state is doing too much. And isn't a wonderful example of it that people earning over £125,000 are getting benefits? I don't think any of our viewers would expect people with that level of earnings to be supported by the state.
I think even if you look towards the higher five-figure salaries, I think people would be surprised to hear that they're receiving benefits. And I think this speaks to the fact that if you overtax people, then people who are on theoretically relatively high incomes are actually going to see relatively small take-home pay because so much of it is being nixed by the Treasury.
And they're not necessarily spent very well. And Taxpayers Alliance is trying to ensure that people understand this.
Spend money better than the state is something I know you believe in and something I know many of your viewers believe in.
Absolutely. And this is something that needs to be tackled. Can the budget do it tomorrow?
I certainly hope we'll see some positive moves. I mean, getting people back into work is vital, and I'd love to see something like a change to some of those tax thresholds. Obviously, there's going to be some positive moves, hopefully, on fuel duty and alcohol duty, but I think it's going to be a very cautious budget when actually we need to really unlock some of that potential that there is in this great country.
Well,